Hello, everyone. This is your host, Akil Jabbar, and welcome back to another episode of SaaS District. In today's episode, we'll be talking about some simple ways of how building a community can impact your SaaS startup. Today, we have our guest, Cherish Santoshi, joining us. Cherish is a founding member and head of community at SAWO Labs, an API authentic service. He is specialized in strategy and management and is currently managing programs for over 4 million developers across the globe and has worked for many companies, including Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and the government of India. So Cherish is also an advocate of change and believes that communities can change the world with innovation and constant progress. He is enthusiastic about building and expanding tech communities, as well as supporting technical education, which we'll talk about today. So welcome, Cherish. Super excited to have you on the SaaS District show today.
Thanks, Akil. Thanks for having me here. Honored to be here. Looking forward to our chat.
So just want to understand, is it SAWO Labs? Am I pronouncing it properly? Before we get into it?
SAWO Labs is fine. That's right.
SAWO Labs? All right, perfect. So I'd love to hear, tell us a little bit, what do you guys do over there? Why is it important to use an user and authentication tool in a business and maybe just in our everyday life?
Sure. So currently what happens is that every time you log into an app, I don't know if that's still relevant in India or relevant in Canada, but a lot of companies in India still prefer to choose to send you an OTP, right? And that's something, the one-time password or actual password is something that we still use to log into any app. Now, the problem with that is sending an OTP is extremely ineffective. The success rate of an OTP is 72%, which means 30% of the OTPs never arrive. Or if they do arrive, they actually fail because of the limited constraint of the time to fill in your OTP and go into the site, right? Now, this becomes extremely infuriating, not only for the product manager, but as a business as a whole. Imagine you're running a financial, a fintech app, right? Imagine the revenue you lose because of 30% people could not onboard, right? The bounce rate, just if somebody lands on your website, and even if you're not doing something which is, fintech or like impacts, like millions of dollars, even if you're selling like an online t-shirt store, right? No matter where you are, anybody who reaches you and finds you and lands on your website will realize that these guys will not onboard your product because you sent an OTP and it was never delivered. So they'll just try it and then eventually out of frustration, they'll just give it away, right? Now, okay, so what's the solution here? The solution is to authenticate people using the most frictionless way possible, right? So, okay, so and you would see that anybody who owns a phone probably unlocks it using their thumbprint, retina, face finger, whatever, right? 160 times a day. So it's just almost intuitive. It's like a second nature. Now, imagine if you could log into any app or website using just like that, right? Using your face, your thumbprint, your retina, or just pin pattern face unlock, whatever you may call it. If it was as easy as unlocking your phone, you will not second guess logging into an app, right? The bounce rate will like just completely sort out. In fact, if you use SAWO's and authentication, SAWO authentication and passwordless OTP-less authentications, you'll realize that the success rate from 72 jumps to 99.86, and that's phenomenal. And OTP costs you 1 rupee and 80 paisa to 1 rupee, and SDK like this and an API using SAWO, it can cost you as low as 5 paisa. So that's 95% cost saved. So as product manager is happy because bounce rate has reduced. The owner is happy because everybody's just logging in as, not second guessing anything, not deteriorating the overall situation. And the cost is also saved by 95%. So, it helps everybody. It helps the business by improving their UX, their bounce rate, and also their cost.
Yeah, 100%. I get absolutely frustrated when I see it, and especially when I go back into an app that I've been using for a while and they're like, this is now mandatory. You have to put it in. I'm like, and then I don't get the text and I'm waiting and I keep hitting resend. And then I'm like, try to call me. And I'm like, this is just super frustrating. Yeah. So I understand that frustration very well. If I'm a product manager and I'm thinking of using something like this and, building it and thinking about my roadmap, should I be thinking this from day one, or is this something, I can implement at any time? Like at what point is this the right solution for me?
Yeah. So fair question, right? Like we asked our community, our community of like serious developers that, do you think authentication before you build a product, or do you think authentication right after you built it? And the answers we've got were like both. There was a very 55-45 split between either or. So it doesn't really matter like whether you realize the authentication is needed or not. I think sometimes you kind of add the auth layer when you realize that your business needs it and the traction, the volume starts to grow up. And some people are like, I'm building it to scale right from day one, right? So I want auth as the first thing. So even auth happens right at the first login activity, the homepage, right? And so the minute somebody thinks of a homepage, they're like, this is where they will log in. This is where the OTP will come in. And sequential thinkers, lateral thinkers will think of it right from the get-go. People who flow and think of the overall vision and then fix out the minor details will probably look at it later. But either way, it's an SDK which you can integrate at any stage of your life or any stage of the product.
Yeah, the latter of what you described is probably somebody like me. Think of the big vision and then how to break it in later. And but I think security is super important. I think you have to think about that from the beginning. I guess that's the whole kind of purpose of this is building security and protecting the users. Right? It's just a simpler way and a frictionless way to implement that. And there's this quote you mentioned, which is on your site: "It's the only tool developers would crave for." What do you mean by that? And how does that how do you guys differentiate? What's your differential advantage of the rest of the guys out there?
Right. So, I mean, look at it this, right? No matter what stage of a developer you are, you will eventually trying to build a product. You'll not only you want to be thinking of the product as a whole, right? And you would want to kind of find a way that your product improves in all the metrics that it matters. So let's say Akhil has an app, right? Akhil has an app where all his podcasts are there. Now, Akhil doesn't want anybody to download that app and not go through it, right? And then uninstall it by realizing, I never used it anyway. Why keep it on my phone, right? So what Akhil would do as a content creator, as a developer, as a product manager, as an owner of the businesses will make sure that anybody who downloads that app goes through, at least experiences what he has to say. Now, even if that person uses it for the first time, then uninstalls changes phone, uninstalls the app, downloads again, you don't want to send them the same OTP, give them the same experience the first time you gave, where you give them passwords and OTPs, and then they have to go through the same process. Then how many times have we, in general, reset our password? Do you know, on an average, people have 26 passwords that they have to remember to use the common apps that they have to? Imagine if everything was just one password and that can't be copied, which is just you, right? Your PIN, pattern, face unlock, and just everything on your phone works seamlessly. If that was the case, right? A developer, no matter which app he's building, a developer who's building a platform like OS, like Android or iOS, or like OTP, like original equipment manufacturers, like these people who build phone like OnePlus, Xiaomi, iPhones, right? Who have like the entire grid just logged into one OTPs or one single way of authenticating. All of them would want to use something like that because it's seamless, passwordless throughout your ecosystem. So if you're a developer, whether we like it or not, you're part of an ecosystem which is being run by a product manager, and they want to make sure that, just like Akhil would, that everybody uses their product as seamlessly as possible, and hence they have to think of auth as a solution. So, and that's why I think SAWO comes into play like really perfectly. So it has a huge TAM, and it's increasing day by day when founders and VCs are just penetrating into marketplaces which never had the internet, right? Where they're the first time experiencing the internet. It's the first time that they'll download an app and even try and log in, right? And if you're creating a frictionless way for them to log in, well, nothing like it. You'll probably win the long-term race. Right. So that's why it's important to build that way and use SAWO for that reason.
So right now I can see it on my phone here. I use the fingerprint ID. But you still get that annoyances from using an actual PC, I think, or computer desktop. Obviously Apple has come up with Touch ID on their laptops. But do you see anything coming up? Some kind of solution there, that would work on a computer side, on locking in.
Yeah, the computer side, of course. So so let's look at how authentication happens, right? Yeah. So anytime I have to verify you are Akhil, I will verify it using three ways. One, I will verify something that you are. Like I will validate using one of these factors, something that you are, something that you have, or something that you know. So passwords are something that you know, right? And keys, like a physical key. Think of any way where you've proved that you are Akhil, you have used any of these factors. So a key, like a public, it can be physical key or an encryption key or whatever, is something that you have, right? And the third is something that you are, and these are biometrics. So even if you change platforms, even if you change devices, one of these one of these, or in fact more than one, would be used to actually to authenticate you, right? So it could, if you're using just one, it's single factor authentication. If you're using two, then it's 2FA. If you're more than two, then it's MFA, multi-factor authentication. So regardless to which device you're on, you would be using either of these. It depends on the equipment manufacturer, on the product manager, what they wanted to use. But of course, fingerprint will be a little dicey and kind of annoying also to kind of use it on a PC, for sure.
Sure. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else other than like Face ID, which could probably be another one. Cool. So before we get into the community side, which is kind of the heart of this episode, and any for the people listening in, SaaS business owners, SaaS founders, SaaS product managers listening in, and maybe they want to learn how to use this and see the value of this. Can you share any maybe stories, case study successes, or even challenges you've had working specifically with that segment, which are SaaS companies?
For sure. All right, so I want to take you back to 2007 or 8, where when Twitter actually started to boom, right? And I want to draw that comparison very closely to how iPhone came into existence, right? Early 2000s. Now, when iPhone came into existence, and if you look at mobile share, like market share then, LG, Motorola, Dell, and I think one Nokia, these guys own like 94% of the market share, and Apple owned measly 4% in computers and just almost zero in mobile. Now, what happened? How did iPhone explode out of nowhere, and everybody wanted to kind of just jump onto that? So what Apple identified was not through the physical device, but something called App Store. Now, App Store was a platform where when the community of developers came and built something, right? Now, what happened is that a lot of apps which people, so imagine if you're a Nokia user in early 2000s, if you have to watch YouTube, you will have to go to Google, write YouTube, and then go through it, right? And everybody realized that YouTube is something that everybody wants as a user. So a community of developers were made to bring on Apple Store. They were incentivized because everybody who downloads the app, they get an incentive, right? So the community was onboarded. They identified micro needs or micro requirements of the users, and they started building towards that. Now, when you engage the community in a certain way, when you find developers who are going to build not just for the users, but that users are going to use that platform to buy your product, right? And App Store became exclusively to iPhones, right? So people started building on App Store. Users started to come on App Store to use as many products as they can. More users, more requirements, more developers, more revenue, more product, right? So hence, the minute they saw this as a cycle, they realized that this is something great happening here, right? And that's how App Store became famous and iPhone came into life, right? And exploded out of nowhere because this wasn't being done by anybody, right? This wasn't like a single unified platform. Twitter, for example, is also a very interesting case study. You'll realize that when Twitter came into life, the way you would get startup news was very scattered. You'd have to read 3-4 newspapers, and also even the information that you would seem like you would want to consume was probably vetted by and supposedly credited as newsworthy or worthy of broadcasting to the public by giant media houses. So they were gatekeepers. And you, like Akhil, we could have great content, but he'll have to take it to the media house, and the media house will probably try and do whatever with that content, then probably see fit and explode, like give it to somewhere. So what happened was that Twitter chose that everybody can do it. They created in a very community platform where everybody can come, share their content, no restrictions within 140 characters. And the minute people realize that people can tweet anything about it, right, with no and reach multiple people without any gate checkers, without any gatekeepers, without anybody trying to find if this content is worthy of putting out, it exploded, right? So communities have always been the part of improving SaaS companies' growth, has always been and always will be also, because growth is like a multiplier which needs people's attention. And if you can onboard more and more people to give that to your user base, you're always going to win. And I'll probably expand on how communities are evaluated maybe later in the series.
Sure.
Or episode. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, we can get into it. I mean, that's the whole value of having community, right? So, having that attention, having that loyalty, building that base that you can, always communicate with and have without barrier, right? I think that's the kind of key there. From your side, maybe you can chat about what you guys have done at SAWO. What are the strategies that you guys use to build, your communities and those strong connections, and maybe tie that into how building communities can, maintain and build that innovation and growth for startups as well.
Sure. So if you're a SaaS founder, right, and if you're thinking of what are communities, how do I get by it, how do I build it, how do I use it for my product's growth? Before you build a community, let's just understand that every community has 4 factors that make it like worthy of like attention, right?
Okay.
The first is the size. Now, let's say you and I have a community of 100 people, and I have like a people of 50,000. Your image rate would be like maybe 50,000 people is worth more, right? So let's just bet on that. Okay. So the size is probably the bigger is better. But now the problem with 50,000 people is that maybe I'll not have as engaged people as you would, right? Because it's easier to engage 100 people than it is to 50,000. So it becomes like a necessary evil where as you grow, you have to keep increasing your engagement in general. So that's the first factor, that you pick a smaller size, more engagement, or a bigger size, less engagement, right? The second factor is quality. Now, let's say quality is defined by the value, by the kind of people you have in the community, right? Now, what kind of people do you want? Now, that's subjective. Now, if I'm building a community for dog parents, right? I want people who care about dogs, right? So whenever you build a product, you have an ideal user persona, which means if I can have more people like this, I'm gold, right? So the more kind of people you have in your community, the better it is, because then you have exactly what you want and less of the fluff, more of the material, right? So that's the quality. The third thing is influence. Now, let's say Akhil has a community of 100 and I have a community of 100,000. But Akhil has President Obama out of those 100. Well, you win, hands down. And I have nobody, right? So the kind of influential people that you have there, their reach, people living looking up to them, their pull in the market, right? That wins. So that's the third thing. Cred is a great example, and I'll speak about it later, how influence matters. And the fourth was spend capacity. Now, people pay in more than money. Right? They pay more. They pay in more ways than just the money. Right? Mm-hmm. They pay with their time, energy, attention, mind share, and as a product owner, as a SaaS founder, you would want people to give you as much currency as they can, whether it's time, whether it's mind share, energy, effort, whatever, right? So the more they can spend on your platform, the better it is. So whenever you're building a community, right, you want to find like a good mix of all 4 of them and then use it for anything you can. Because as a founder, you could either build a community and then launch a product, or launch a product and then build a community. Depends who you are. Like I said, lateral thinking or like the flow people, right? So that being said, right, whenever you're building a community, you can use either of these. These are 4 things that matter. Now, coming to the second part of the question, Akhil, how we at SAWO have realized this, right? Whenever you have a dev tool, or whenever you have a a developer first SaaS product. Now, this is very specific to developers, developer companies or dev tools like Authentication, Notion and things like that. And whenever you're a founder of these SaaS companies, what you would want to do is you have 2 ways to sell. One, you would speak to the CEO, to the director, and then they use it, right? The top-down approach, right? Where you speak to the most influential people, they write you a check, and then you through, right? Now, the problem with these things are, and the problem with that is that almost always, whenever there's a dev tool, they would want to first test it with their developers and then write the check, right? Mm-hmm. So you will eventually have to set up a demo call with a bunch of the developers, the product managers, and then make sure that convinces happens, right? The second thing is that you'll probably spend a lot of time. Now, this is what we realized at SAWO. One of the things that we realized early is that whenever you sell to a bigger company, the average sales cycle is too huge. Right. Now, because bigger companies have a lot of requirements, right? You have to do X number of compliances, you have to do N number of things. And then the average life cycle would be 3 months, 6 months or whatever. Now, the smaller company, again, because you have to give a round of demos to a bunch of these people. Now, the bottom up approach is what we use here is that if you build a community of developers who know your product, who've used your product, and who've seen your product elsewhere being used by their friends, almost every great developer, and I say this arguably because a lot of people will disagree, will have a side hustle or a side project, right? That they use to experiment with a certain tool, the library, a certain use case, a certain feature, certain UI UX. If they've used my product in their side project, it becomes easier for them to vouch for it within their company, right? So imagine if I have 100 people, and out of those 100 people are 20 people for a startup that I'm potentially going to sell to. These 20 people are already using my product and well versed with it, have realized its potential. It's easier for them to influence their directors, their decision makers, the person who's going to write them a check. Because the minute I go there, go to that decision maker, they say, "Hey, here is my product. Maybe I want you to use that." And the first question is like, "What does it do?" I'm like, this does XYZ things. Developers on your team are already using it. Why don't you ask for that? And maybe sometimes they will always give you a referral, right? So the community of developers that you build, they use the bottom up approach to kind of influence your decision maker and make the sales cycle a little smaller and get the entire process faster, quicker, and improve your growth in general.
So I understand it from that perspective, right? It's more of a tool to kind of, influence, get people to use it, kind of more product led, get involved with it, and then use them as a sales, to the decision makers. But I mean, if somebody's just starting off, how would you go about, building it? Is that the way you suggest them, go the route of, building the product, give a free edition for people to play with? Or is there another way that you suggest people, take that approach in building it?
So we do have 9,000 customers, and a lot of them were reached out to and acquired using community as a route. So every product-led company should have a community-led growth as a multiplier, right? Because that's what it matters. If you have a product, well, how are you reaching to your potential customers? One of the things that we do is we have a freemium model where we give 5,000 authentications for any developer to kind of use, and we can increase it to 10,000 depending upon the scale of the product. Not just that, if you're a developer who's used SAWO and have created a mobile app which is ready to plug and play on Play Store, we also fund your Google Play Store, or App Store subscription fee. So to make sure that we enable you as a developer to test out your product as well as our authentication, checkpoint, or as our authentication SDK, right? So if anybody's starting out and is just looking out means to and ways to authenticate their users, SAWO is a great way to start because we give free authentications and free freemium models to whoever joins in.
Got it. So, starting with that freemium model, getting people to play with it, share it, get excited about it. And then that becomes your sales engine to the decision maker and your advocates.
Yeah. And just one thing to add, right? Mm-hmm. Like even if you're building with a newer stack, right? We have a GitHub, we have a thriving Discord community of 5,000 plus people, right? Growing as we speak. So even if you get stuck somewhere during authentication or during just engineering effort or product effort, you can just drop a comment there, and there are people just like yourself who are going to help you selflessly. Not just that they'll spend your time they'll come on video calls, audio calls with you to vet out these efforts. And these are our developer advocates, which came from the community organically because they believed in the vision so much. And they all used the product. They found it so useful that now they kind of help everyone who's trying to find a way to work with SAWO.
And did you do that? Was that decision made from day one around building that, Discord or GitHub community and said, look, we need to do this because it's going to help us? Or was this later on, was this decision made afterwards from, realizations of support or people reaching out?
No, one thing which I want to mention, Prabhat, who's the CEO founder of SAWO. One thing where credit due where it's credit given where it's due. I was the 8th employee in the company, and he realized that he needs community right from the get-go. So I joined last year, and within a span of 1 year, we've grown from 2 people to kind of 50 plus people now. Mm-hmm. But that being said, I think like we started from day one itself. We realized that it's something that we need because it's a developer-first product. And if you're not making the developer first approach, you're doing something wrong. A lot of our effort, like a lot of our engineering efforts, a lot of our product features and pipelines are actually fueled by developers. So what we're going to build is not just decided by 4 people sitting in a room, but like a community who really uses it on a day in, day out basis. who sees the use cases that we can't, who speaks to people that we don't, who will probably work for the companies that we will probably not have interaction with, who has engineers, friends, developers, circles that discuss things that doesn't happen in a four-member product team meeting, right? So if they are designing your product roadmap, you know you're doing something right. You obviously vet them based on your vision, but if they have the equal stakeholder, we take their product or we take their features, we build on them, and we tell them, hey, we built something based on what you just said. Here is your incentive, and we have like a round table with them where we discuss ideas and we make them equal stakeholders of our product roadmap. It's open. Our product roadmap is open for 5,000 people to come and see and look at, comment at any point in time.
A quick note from our sponsors today, and we'll be right back. This episode is sponsored by Contentify.co, a premium podcast editing and repurposing agency for busy content creators just like you. Are you spending too much time editing your podcast and end up with no time to stay on top of also publishing, sharing, reaching new listeners, while also staying ahead of the latest podcasting trends? Don't worry, Contentify has you covered. You no longer need to worry about spending hours editing and repurposing anymore. Just record your content and they handle the rest. Contentify is an end-to-end podcast editing and repurposing agency to help you grow your podcast by editing and repurposing quickly, easily, and reliably to share all over your social networks. And if you haven't even noticed, I also use them for the SaaS District podcast. So join other busy content creators just like you and me and start saving time and money while you grow your podcast show. Visit Contentify.co to learn more today. Love it. So kind of have the build by, over time and share that journey with everybody as you go along. So you've had that community, you've built it out, and then you've leveraged it. It seems to be you've leveraged it really well to, for product feedback, for support, and supporting each other on getting your product implemented, and then also for growth. Can you share maybe some other growth strategies that have also worked well for growing SAWO, or maybe some failed experiments as well that didn't go as you planned?
Sure. So one of the things that we did was, for every SaaS company, right, they have like a freemium model that they want to distribute. So what happens with this, any company, what they do is that they have like a starter program or like a community program where they give out a certain number of credits of their product for free. Now, the problem with that is that their distribution becomes a challenge. So what we've done is we've created a bundle of all the SaaS products that a business would want to use, and we give it out. We handle their distribution and we give it out to their potential partners, so they can use our community as community as a surface, so to say. So to kind of improve their distribution and improve their growth in general, because we can reach out to far more people than these guys can. We can join hands and have a collaborative way. So it's a great growth strategy because we have like a bundle of all the SaaS products, all the credits that potentially a developer or potentially like a SaaS founder would use. We bundle it to them and we give it to you, and whatever you have to offer, we take it, bundle it, and give it to somebody else. It's like a whole community kind of benefits from each other. That's something that we have done. One of the things that we did, we created for employer branding, we created a rap song on how you should join SAWO. That also worked really well. Those are a few things that we keep doing. It's a young company. Everybody is in their early 20s or something, Nice. Mid-20s is what the average age is. So everybody likes to keep it fun and around.
Yeah, I'm guessing you are the guitarist in the background, right? On that one. I want to hear the track there.
True.
Okay, so the last part of this, on the community side, I want to understand is how do you give back? How do you give back to your community? I know your big initiative is helping programs to support technical education. Maybe some thoughts you can share with maybe other startups listening in. They want to start implementing similar functionalities into their business model. Maybe it's something you can share that you guys are doing well.
Yeah. So, for the businesses, you can use a community for driving adoptions. Like if you have a product that's, first of all, not getting adopted well enough, probably sit with a bunch of developers, sit with them, make your documentation better. A lot of developers, and you'd see this, that developers are people who like to figure out things on their own, right? They're not people who rely on like somebody coming up and telling them how to do things. So the first thing that they will look for whenever they reach out to product is like the documentation, how well it's written, so that they can look at it and figure out themselves. So documentation is something that you have to improve. The community can help you with adoption. They can help you with creating a buzz and engagement, right? If you ever happen to be on Twitter during SXSW kind of event, you'll realize that the entire community just talks about the conference way too much, right? And everybody joins in. And of course, it improves with like I said, right? If you're building SAWO and if you get stuck somewhere, your community can help your customers to improve their support, give them the right feedback, and help them navigate. This is something that you can do. Now, what you can do business for the community is something which is very simple. First, you have to be very empathetic. Now, empathy is, I can't stress this enough. And if you were to ask like one word, if there was one word I have to correlate with the word community, it has to be empathy. Because if you don't care about the who you are taking along for the ride, you can't expect them to get any benefit or any value out of them. So if you're the kind of example that I use is that, let's say, Akhil, if you subscribe to my newsletter for 30 days, I'm going to send you everything that helps you when organize your life, or whatever my newsletter is about, right? Organize your life, organize your desk, make like healthy habits, eat healthy, wear healthy, look healthy, whatever. And on the 31st day, I will say, can you fill up this form? For 30 days, I've imparted so much value. I've been so empathetic to you as a community member that you'll feel a little bit on debt towards what I have to offer, right? And if you can't do that, you will fail. So community is always a long-term game, because people are either faking empathy or they just like run out of it, right? And if you can't do that, if you can't be empathetic, now find whatever is valuable to your community. It could be a Netflix subscription, Spotify subscription, a T-shirt, giving them the opportunity. Now, this is what we do at SAWO, that any community member who has an idea for startup, we not just help them make their pitch decks, we also associate and kind of put them in touch with our VCs or our VC network, right? So we've done an event like this, and we'll keep doing something like this where we make our community members go from just a developer to a product manager, where we help them build their products, and maybe as a founder by introducing them to either our VCs or just funding the project by ourselves.
Right. So it's not all about, how can I take and, force my product down of you. It's like, okay, let's get into their position. Who are these people? Understanding them, and like, okay, they actually have their own, journey they want to follow, and maybe they're supporting them along the way. And, we'll be there. Our product is there when, maybe down the line if you decide to use it. And I like that. So, you're asking 30 days, it's all about give, 30 times in a row. And then 31 is like, hey, would you mind? You ask for that nice ask, and, hopefully at that point, people are willing to give back. So love that analogy. Cherish, kind of switching gears here. Love kind of what you shared on the community side. I want to understand, your personal background a little bit, where the business is going, and, a couple of rapid fire questions. And in terms of, SAWO, I know you were, employee number 8, but maybe if you could share a little bit of stats on, where you guys are in terms of size today. You guys, looks like you guys have raised some capital. Maybe if you can speak a little bit of that and the journey about that.
Yeah. So we raised our first round in, before December last year. There was a seed fund of 840K. And then we've just closed our Series A, so it should be announced anytime as we speak. The Series A round is anywhere between 6 million plus to between 10. So it's between 6 to 10. Our Series A round, and we've grown from we started with 2-member team, and then we've grown on to 50 plus right now, right? So that's where we are at today in terms of size, valuation, and so forth. We're also going to expand to international marketplaces. So we're looking at putting a foot in European markets, Southeast Asia, and also Africa. Because Africa is a very interesting market. It's like India 10 years ago, right? Everybody started to realize the power that they hold in the world, on the world stage, and everybody's stepping up to the game. And authentication is a big problem, Akhil. It's felt everywhere. It's no matter who you are, where you are, it's just like you face an OTP or a password level problem. So we're entering these marketplaces and we're solving for them. We're kind of building these communities and helping people solve auth as a problem for their businesses, for their side projects, and so forth.
Nice. And in terms of your vision, I know you're not the CEO and founder, But from when you first started SAWO, as a co-founding member, how would you say has been evolved over time to what it is today? And do you understand? Is there an exit plan, if any, or do you understand what the long-term vision is of the company?
So the way we've evolved is that we've tried to expand the product's vision by adding more and more integrations on various platforms. So even if you're so if you're a founder who doesn't come from a technical background, if you're a non-tech founder, you have authentications on no-code platforms as well. So you could go to WordPress, Bubble, Shopify, and you can just plug and play the widget and you're through, right? So we've expanded because as a co-founder or as a founder itself, you would want to have auth as you want to solve auth as a problem, whether you're from a tech background or not. So that's why we've increased our scope of serving to a bigger market. And we also are releasing 2 more features. One's called a CAPTCHA, which is going to be very similar to what you know today. And the second is going to be a fast checkout process on an e-commerce or a direct D2C companies where, just authenticate yourself, buy the product, authenticate yourself and out. Because one of the most frustrating ways to authenticate yourself happens when you're making the transaction on an e-commerce website, right? And that's where a lot of businesses lose revenue because of failed OTPs. So if we can fix that, it's going to be a great experience for the customer and it's going to be a great experience for the business as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Amazon is still trying to figure that out. I know they have the quick pay, but they also have me doing the authentication every time as well. So hopefully we can get in with them and fix their problem. Sounds good. Cherish, I want to switch gears and hit into the rapid fire questions before we wrap up. You ready for it? Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, let's do this. So what's one piece of advice you wish you had known and maybe you would tell your 25-year-old self today if you can go back in time? I think you seem pretty young, so let's maybe like 22, 23 maybe.
What I would say, I would say, what I would say is just like, it's very hard to put this in words, right? Because there will be a bunch of advice that I would give myself, both professional and personal. So either or, right? So as a professional advice that I would give myself is that forget what's like before you know what to build, you'll probably fail a little more, and your appetite for failing should be enough so that you don't break down. So let me try phrasing this in a better way. As long as you can recover from the next failure slightly more improved, as long as you know yourself that much, you should fail far more often before you find the right product to build. So it's very hard for an engineer or for a developer or for any co-founder to find the right product that sticks out right from the first get-go, right? So give yourself the time and give yourself the patience and also the kindness to kind of fail with the slightly more learning and iterate your process every time you go. It's very so even if your first product doesn't succeed, even as a first business idea doesn't make it big, I am for sure, I can tell you this, that there is a learning from that experience that's going to translate directly into your next venture, right? So give yourself that kindness, be open to failing, right? And learn from that failure just enough so that you can go on another day. Just go on another day. That's all. You don't have to think about like whether this will succeed next 5 years or not.
Yeah. Don't let it, keep you down for too long, right? I mean, you can fall down, but just keep getting back up and go again.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges you guys are currently facing in order to continue to grow, the SaaS business right now? Meaning, what keeps you up at night these days?
So India is a great market, right? Like we've for last between 2010 to 2015, we probably had like 2 to 5 unicorns, and between we I think a few weeks ago we had 32 unicorns in a week, which was insane, which growing at a rapid pace. Now, that being said, right, a lot of the entire market is kind of out there and building something which can probably accelerate their career, accelerate their business, and accelerate the entire market in itself. So there are always going to be newer use case where auth can be implemented. And whether we like it or not, we'll not be able to identify that at all, right? So one of the things is that we always keep an eye for where the community is using the product in general. And then we make sure that if this is a use case that we can potentially serve as we go along, right? That's what I would say. And that being said, growth is always like is something that everybody focuses on. Entering international markets is something that we haven't done before, so it's a newer game for us, and we're very excited for it. And I'm sure like we'll probably do well, because if you're in India, dude, India is not a country. India is like a continent, and everybody needs to understand that the diversity you have from top to down, and left to right, it's far more than you can consume. People don't speak the same language. People eat completely different food, completely different attire. Everything is different, and if you can compete in a market like India, and you do something, you're probably something at world stage for sure.
Where are you guys planning to hit up next? Are you guys going directly to the US market, or what's the plan?
Not US for now. So we're entering Europe. We're taking countries like we're starting with London. We're starting with the UK, Ireland, Portugal, and then we're also going slightly Eastern European, which is Austria, Ukraine, Switzerland, and we're Turkey also, and these countries. And then Southeast we have, of course, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and we also have Vietnam, Laos. Yeah, these countries is what we're headed. And in Africa, we'll probably touch base the last, which is probably we'll start with Uganda.
Nice. Who or what are some of the best resources? It could be books, people, mentors, or people you follow, who you'd say have been the most instrumental to your success over these last few years?
So a few founders that I really like, and they're very like freely share their knowledge, and they share it in a very sensitive, like they make sense even if you like drill down into it and look for specifics, and they make sense even if you're stepping out and taking a step back and look at it holistically. I'm a huge fan of Naval Ravikant. I think he's a great he's a very stoic when he explains things. Mm-hmm. I think one of the guys who I really like is also Kunal Shah, which is the founder here at Cred in India. Now, one of the things that he's done is built a community of credit card holders in India, which is a very small percentage, right? And these people have like they spend better, they have better credit score, and he's created a peer-to-peer lending platform, which is great, which is something that we need. Great fan of Fez. I'm a huge fan of Notion as well.
Oh yeah. Notion's great. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that Notion is doing really well is that they also taking that. Remember that example that I gave about iPhone, where people kind of came to their community and started building for their apps. One of the things that Notion does is a lot of their great templates were created by a community, and if you're a template creator, you can earn. So it's a similar thing that happened long ago, right? A very specific way where you target the community, who builds for your user base, and user base consumes what has been built for them by users like them, and that's how you grow. So Ivan is Notion's founder, and I think he's doing really well.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and also Naval, I'm a big fan as well. So we'll put those three in our show notes for people who want to check them out. I highly recommend it. Cherish, what does success mean to you today? Whether that's personally, business, financially, life, is no right answer.
I think success means as long as you're living up to your potential and always stretching it every day at the time, and you've got yourself into like an automatic flow where you're happy with you're living up to your potential and extending it, like, and reaching it out for another day is what it is for me. Whether it's professional or personal, if I'm even 0.1% better today than I was yesterday, I think I'm being successful.
Nice. Well, this has been good, Cherish. I appreciate you jumping on the SaaS District show today. Final question: anything else you want to add, or where can founders get in touch with you and learn more about you and SAWO Labs?
Sure. So if you're a founder, I would love it if you can check out our SAWOLabs.com as a website. If you're a developer, product manager, just a startup enthusiast who's just looking out how SAWO works, what is it all about? We also have a Discord community that you can welcome to join. Everybody will be will extend a helping hand there, and we'll make sure that you have a comfortable time there. That being said, if you want to get in touch with me, you can reach out to me at on Twitter or LinkedIn. My handle are very simple. It's just my name, no spaces. So twitter.com/Cherish Santoshi or linkedin.com/in/Cherish Santoshi. That's as simple as that. That's about it. Akhil, thanks for having me over. This has been great. I was looking forward to your podcast and recording this. It's slightly late. It's just coming up 9 here. But I was really pumped for this, and you can see there's no sign of fatigue here.
All right, thank you.
Perfect, Akhil. Thanks for having me. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for watching this episode and joining SaaS District today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for future episodes where we interview top leaders in the SaaS industry. If you're a SaaS company looking to grow and unlock the true value of your business, get in touch with us at Horizon Capital, and myself or one of our consultants will provide a free assessment to help you get there and hit your goals. If you have any feedback or suggestions for this podcast, please comment down below and help us improve our content for you all. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.